I'm Peter Violette. I've been with New England Steam really since the beginning. We formed in 2012 to restore 470 to operation, your namesake locomotive. And it's been quite a ride. It's crazy that it's going to be 10 years this summer since we first started. So this presentation, we're going to start with the history of the locomotive, and then we'll go through some of the stuff that we've restored in the last couple of years. So this was the valuation index for Maine Central. So this is the railroad at its peak, and this was drawn in 1916 and shows all the branches as they were at their fullest extent. And they were quite a big railroad at the time. In southern Maine, lots of different branches. Some of them, most of them actually really aren't around anymore. Yeah, it was a rat's nest of lines down there, and they had lots of trackage up in Vermont and New Hampshire, up through Rangeley to Kennebago, all of the British and Sandy River stuff up there, and the line, the Somerset Railroad line up through Kineo to Moosehead Lake, and then through Canada, up past Bangor through Vanceboro, Calais Branch, and down through Waterville. Was also quite extensive track network down there. So going into the 20th century and the early 20th century, Maine Central's had a bunch of 440s. And when they were modernizing, then they went through the progression that every railroad sort of went through, up through the 460s. And then from the 460s, they went to the Pacifics. And they had a bunch of different classes of Pacifics. So Maine Central really liked them. Well, I guess every railroad really did. Starting with the Class C in 1907 and progressing up to the Class C, to the C3s in 1917. All this, they were pretty uniform throughout the different models, except for 467. 467 had a pretty funky looking tender, but basically looked just like 466 there. In 24, they got two more locomotives. They got 469, they got 470. They were pretty close to the regular Class C3s. They had some larger cylinders, but besides that, I mean, basically the same. They were from Schenectady in the Alco Schenectady Works there, New York. They were both delivered in 24 in the summer, and they just went into the roster. So that last one, that's a picture of 469. That's from Elko Historic Photos. This one would have been sent to the railroad, and with it, they also got they got all the plans and this book, and we haven't been able to find the book, unfortunately, but that would be something to have. So if any of you were able to locate that book, it'd be great, because we don't have any plans. Anyways, so here's 470. This is the earliest picture we have. This is I believe this one is in Waterville. Really early on in the locomotive's career. It still has the bell is still on top of the boiler. The pilot there is still the original one, just like 469 had, which is with the steps on both sides and the really narrow looking pilot. Stop me if I'm going too fast. And then another early shot of 470 in service here. This is a little bit later on, though. You can see that the pilot just switched out for this cast iron one. This one was my favorite one. I think this one was really neat. So here the bell's been relocated above the smoke box, and this is southbound at Portland Union Station. 470 was pretty regular in Boston. Here's a shot out of North Station. So the relationship between Boston and Maine Central are around the 30s and 40s. I'm not a business person, so I don't really know the details of their relationship, but in my mind, they shared plans. They shared Maintenance records, they were pretty close to, not a merger would be a strong word, but they shared lots of resources between each other. So 470 was seen pretty regularly down in North Station here. This is Wilmington, Mass, and this is an interesting shot because it's a milk train. And we don't have very many pictures of 470 pulling freight, but here's one. And there's one other shot when 470 was going down to Florida, down to Portland for the last run. She pulled some freight down there. Anyway, so starting in the 30s, things were starting to change for Maine Central. So in 35, Flying Yankee, which we're all familiar with, I'm sure, did the Portland Boston to Bangor route, and that was really the beginning of the end here for the steam locomotives. But World War II threw a wrench in that. So this one stayed the only diesel mainline locomotive that they had for a while. So they were still investing in the steam technology up until the war. So this is 470 in its final form here. I don't know if you can really see my cursor, but above the last driver that's the valve pilot, and that was one of the that's probably my favorite appliance on the locomotive. So the valve pilot, the locomotive, just like a car, if I can use that analogy, is the faster you go, you got to shift gears. So in a locomotive, that's cut off. So when you start a train, you want to have as much steam as you can in the full stroke of the piston. So you start out with it getting 75% of the stroke gets steam, and as the faster you go, you cut it back. So when you're 35% of the stroke, you'll have steam, then 20 or whatever. So there is a fine line between both being most economical with your steam and the locomotive starting to buck. So if you get it too low, it'll start to buck, and quite an unpleasant experience, especially when you're pulling passengers. So the valve pilot was a mechanical computer that would take the speed you were going and the cutoff that you had apply, and it would tell you in the cab the perfect amount of cutoff to apply to get the most economy out of the locomotive and save fuel. And at the end of the run, you would roll, it was on a reel of paper, you'd roll it up and you'd bring it into the office, and they would evaluate you on the performance and how well you ran the locomotive. And I think that's really neat. It's all mechanical. Unfortunately, it got gutted by vandals, but all the locomotives that made it up through this, as far as I know, into the 40s, they put these on to try to save as much money as possible. Next. And then they started coming. So in 40, I believe it was 46, 48, the E units came, and Boston and Maine Central really went for it with the E units. It was 700 to 711, and they really started to replace the steam locomotives. So here's 470 with the final paint that she had during the last run. This isn't taken in Rigby. I really like this shot. Locomotive looks great here, brand new. Well, looks brand new. And once the diesels came, the maintenance on the locomotives, on the steam engines, it really dropped. The shot's in Oakland, just taken towards the end here in the 50s, and she's really not looking that great. They stopped cleaning her. She's got soot and dirt all over. But 470 was fortunate, though. Her flue time was at like the perfect amount left that they were able to do the last run with her. So in early June of 54, she was in Waterville, and she got a complete overhaul here and new paint, and really looked nice for the last run. Really, really good. The night before the run, she was brought down to Portland. She, like I said, pulled some freight down there, and this shot here is taken the morning of June 13th, 54. She had just been brought into the station at Portland for the departure here. And they were late for the departure because they had to wait for a train from Boston which was pulled by a diesel, but I'm sure that if it was by steam, it might have been a little quicker. It's a shot in Lewiston headed north. Here's Waterville. This is Newport. And when they got up to Bangor, they had this Alco unit here pacing the locomotive throughout the yard and up into the station. And WABI, one of the guys here is a WABI photographer, and he got some footage pacing the locomotive up through Bangor, which we got digitized a couple of years ago. By Northeast Historic Film has the complete WABI archive, so the footage is pretty cool. I can share a link to it in the chat here at the end. People don't want to see it. So after she brought the train up into Bangor, she was uncoupled and brought into the yard. Since all of the steam maintenance facilities were gone at this point, so they had to improvise, and there were some shots taken. Sorry, I should have included some that they had to use a backhoe to fill the locomotive, fill the tender here with coal. They did the regular oiling session after X amount of hours, and then they brought the locomotive back. So here's a shot of her southbound in Bangor. And this one, I think this one was on the cover of Bangor Daily the next morning. This is my favorite shot. I'm from Waterville. I love the station here. And people really came out for the last run. It was an unpleasant day. It was raining. But I mean, if you just look at the crowd here, there's a band on the right on the plinth where the locomotive would eventually be put on display. And they played, been working on the railroad, I'm sure amongst other songs, but that was the only one that made it into the article. And the locomotive spent some time in Waterville. Then went south on the lower road. This is a shot over the Kennebec in Waterville. The bridge is still there, but basically everything behind is toast. I love this shot too. This is a good shot. So here's Augusta. The station would be in the top right. Then down through Brunswick. And then she went to Portland, dropped the train off, and we actually don't have much information about the next few days. But at some point, she made it back up into Waterville. So Waterville was the home base, really, of, well, unless you consider the main office down in Portland of Maine Central. That was where where they first started there with the consolidation in 1862 to create it, and they had a good chunk of lines that made it up, that met in Waterville. And with the maintenance yard there, they thought that would be a good spot. And also the station had a big yard a big lawn in front of it to display the locomotive. So in the few days after the last run, 470 was brought up to Waterville, and they cut into this track here. So this track was the main lines in the foreground on the top right picture. This track was just a bypass of the platform for freight or whatever if they didn't want to really get into it. But they cut into it, swung the track out, and used ties, scrap wood, whatever. They don't really look like ties to me because they're kind of jaggedly cut, and raised it up and put the locomotive on the plinth. And that's where she sat for a few years. So from 54 to 62, sat in front of the station, which was a really nice display. While you're waiting for the platform, look out on it. We've got many pictures of kids playing on it. She really looked good right there. With the decline of passenger service, they stopped maintaining it. They stopped maintaining the station. You could see the paint falling off on the bottom right. She wasn't taking care of that well, and with the demolition of the station that was going to be coming in 62, 63, and with the underpass that was going to be constructed, they decided to give the locomotive to Waterville. So in October 62, the celebration of the 100 years of Maine Central, they literally wrapped the locomotive up and gave it to the city of Waterville. The locomotive was brought into the yard, and she sat in storage for a few years while they figured out where to put it. I recently found out, and people that know Waterville, I found the correspondence of the state archives about what they were trying to figure out to do with the locomotive. And one proposal was to have it down Front Street there, because that was a site of urban renewal in Waterville. And I can pull up a map here at the end and show where that was going to be. It's where the lower road went parallel Front Street in Waterville, and then eventually went over the bridge. And they proposed putting a siding there, but they didn't work out. The Colby site, which in this next picture here is in the left side where the clump of trees, that's where the original Colby campus was. They talked about putting her there. But what they decided on was this piece of land across College Ave from where the station used to be. Historically, this would have been literally in the middle of the concrete grandstand in Colby, with the football field to the left. The station, the original spot, is across College Ave on the right side of the tracks. The bridge there, the alignment literally cut through where the waiting room of the station was, and the locomotive would have been about where that red truck is, just a little bit past that on the grass. And they had quite a celebration there in 71. This is August 14th, 71. Spencer Miller was still the president at the time, and they had a big ceremony there to rededicate the locomotive. Look at all those vandals there on top, man. Let me go back. Yeah, that was one thing. Not good. Very easy to fall off. Unfortunately, I climbed all over that locomotive growing up, and I can't believe I didn't fall off, but we're all fortunate, I guess. So throughout the years, locomotive, again, wasn't maintained that well. The paint scheme that she had when she was put on display was the more basic Maine Central in, that's a good shot of it there. Maine Central just in yellow paint with the number. They didn't put in the speed lettering. And this paint scheme lasted for about 10 years or so. And then in 82, they repainted her with a sort of modified, less accurate speed lettering. So as you can see in this picture, the text on the tender there is vertical, when in reality, back when she was in service, it was slanted to the same degree as the emblem around it. Same with the 470. But she still looked pretty good here after that last paint job. This was right before they took the jacket off in 82. So the jacket, the locomotive has an asbestos insulation around the boiler, and that's bad news. And so both for cancer and holding in and retaining water around the boiler. So fortunately, they took that off before we got it, because that would have been a nightmare to have to pay for. And I recently got pictures of that abatement, and it was a single guy who did it. And unfortunately, they disposed of the jacket. So that's one thing. That's something we got to recreate from scratch. And that's basically the locomotive here. This is 2012. This is right when we started. Not looking so great. So the city was going through, and they were going to renew their insurance. So they toured all the parks, and this one was a big red flag. Lots of corroded metal. There was still asbestos on the locomotive that was dripping out on the cylinders. Fall hazards. It really wasn't good. So they said they couldn't insure the city. So they put out an RFP, and the request for proposals, the the replies they got, all of them had the locomotive being moved out of state, and we were the only ones that wanted to keep it in state. And the city really wanted to keep it. It really was a job just to get them to allow us to move it, which is understandable. I mean, the locomotive had been there for 60 years at that point, and we would have loved to have kept it there, but it just wasn't viable. We wanted it to run. There was no way that Pan Am was just going to let us play with a steam locomotive on their main line there, so it just wasn't going to happen. So it was a tie vote for the city council to sell it to us, and Mayor Heck at the time split the vote, and we got it. So the deal was we would purchase the locomotive for $25,000, and then we had 1 year to do what we needed to do to get the funds and the contract in place to move the locomotive. So at the time, right when we bought it, this was the state that we were looking at. The floor in the cab is just gone. It really didn't do well. The bottom right, that's one of the journals on the booster underneath the cab. The seal got compromised and was filled with water. And on the left, there was lots of graffiti on the locomotive, and the hatch and the tender was broken off, and there were vandals that got in there. It was full of trash, people sleeping in there, drug paraphernalia. It really wasn't good. We did a full inspection of the locomotive right when we were talking with the city about what we were going to do with it, and found out it really wasn't in as bad shape as she may have looked. The stuff that would have been a game changer about it, the firebox, the boiler itself, this frame, everything seemed to look good. And you can see, or I hope you can see, on the picture on the left here with Jason in the firebox, there's a seam going there around his wrist, and from there down is all brand new steel. So we were fortunate the Maine Central did that before they took the locomotive out of service. So we got it. We got the funds, we got the contract, and we were able to move the locomotive. So in 2016, we got it done. The first thing was trying to separate the tender from the locomotive. You can see in the top right. And the drawbar pin was seized in place, partly due from the coal dust and water. When that gets mixed together, it turns it's very acidic. And so it was one solid piece. And we do have some pretty talented people with metal in the group, but we had to contract that out to a professional, and he sliced the pin perfect. We were able to separate the locomotive and tender, and that was a cool day. We had to use a hydraulic jack mounted horizontally and just slowly push the tender back. And this was the day. This is we're set up here. This was the morning. We were set up and we were going to move it. She was going to move in 4 sections: the boiler, the frame, tender frame, and then the trailing truck and leading truck. Just getting set up. There we go. That was the first truck there. There's the frame. Next morning was the tender. Ready to go in Pan Am's parking lot here. And this was its arrival in Ellsworth. So we actually found out none of us chased it down there. We all just trusted that they were going to make it in time, and they actually got a flat tire on the boiler, the trailer for the boiler, and had to change a tire on the way. But luckily, you didn't hear about it in the news that there was any disasters. So 470, no bridges collapsed, no rollovers. So that was good. First time it had been coupled to a train and to another locomotive in 60 years. They had always moved the locomotive from the front. So I love saying, oh, this is the first time in X amount of years. So I love all that stuff. And we are able to actually get into the booster for the first time since it wasn't underneath the boiler. So 470 was equipped with a booster from the factory. Let me see if I can find a good picture of it here for you. So underneath the trailing truck, or excuse me, underneath the firebox on the trailing truck is a 2-cylinder engine that was only engaged when starting a train. And that it was a pretty unique, I wouldn't say it was unique at the time, but now it's unique. And we were wondering what sort of condition it had because it was literally underneath the locomotive, so it was protected the entire time. And so when we opened it up, I mean, it was still, you can see on the left, it was still filled with oil. I mean, it looks almost pristine inside. We were pretty excited about that because that would have been quite a bear to try to find drawings for and to restore. We didn't test it or anything, but just looking at it, we were pretty excited. So in the couple years after that, we were able to raise enough money to build a building. I mean, it's not full scale facility with concrete floor and overhead crane, but it gave us enough room to back the boiler in. We've got the track in place. The tender will eventually go in. And this was much nicer than working on it in Waterville. I mean, we worked on it that day I was showing you where the firebox, Jason in the firebox, it was probably 10 degrees, maybe below that, windy day. And we didn't have to worry about that anymore in here. No more rain too. And a gentleman by the name of Bob DeWalker got involved here. And he is a very talented machinist and he has a shop at his house. And so he would started taking things home and completely rebuilding it. So this is actually the reverser. So this is how you would adjust the cutoff for the locomotive. The picture on the right is it laying on its side, but on the left is how it would have been mounted on the boiler, and the engineer would have been facing the wheel on the left. So what you would do is you'd crank it to go forward, crank it all the way to the right, and the handle there that you see hanging down with the red, you would flip that up and that would engage the booster. So that's what that actuator is that's vertically mounted. It would engage that. And as you were cranking it back to decrease the cutoff, eventually that would unscrew and it would go past that and it would flip down and it would automatically disengage the booster. It's pretty slick. If you come to any of our shows, we'll always have this on display and it's fun to play with. Another thing that we wanted to get done for display was the dynamo. So on display throughout the years, the maintenance covers got taken off and it was subjected to weather and more vandalism. And this is the best shot I had of its state when we took it off. And it really, just like everything else, really wasn't that good. So we brought it to a shop in Bangor, AC Moore. And they replaced anything that needed to get replaced on it. So this is the, what's the word? Forgive me, I'm not an electrical engineer. This is what it actually spins inside the dynamo. So this had all brand new windings, completely brand new, except for I don't think they might have replaced the shaft. And here we go. That might be loud, sorry about that. Or if you can't even hear it, I'm not sure. So there it is, running on air, powering the headlight. So that's the first time it was producing electricity in, again, 60 years. We haven't had this one on display for a while. One of the valves for the governor was taken off for replacement, and I think it just recently got put back on. So it could operate again, but that's ready to go. Here's a before and after shot. We had to borrow some pieces from WWF. They had a dynamo there, and we had to borrow pieces of the covers, and we had to get new castings completely done. So another big restoration that we were going to have to do was a tender, and it wasn't in the best shape. I mean, at the end of the locomotive's life, they wouldn't have had to it would have had to been replaced if the locomotive was going to be running for much longer. And unfortunately, because somebody had stolen the hatch cover for the tank, water was allowed to get inside for 25 years or so. So down at the bottom here, you can see the corrosion that we were going to have to deal with. And there's a whole network of supports inside the tender. Each vertical row of rivets there was inside a portion of the bracing system. And so you can picture this amount of corrosion, the bottom 3 or 4 inches of every support member inside the tender. So seeing that, we just decided that we are gonna replace the entire thing. And that was, we had to contract that one out. So here's a shot of us taking it off. And we had to get a full set of drawings made because unfortunately we couldn't find any drawings of it. So we hired out a professional to do this, came in, and it's probably 30 or 40 drawings of each member inside. And we found a shop up in Millinocket, and they remanufactured the entire thing. And we talked about doing the fake rivet route, which I think 3713 did, with a full welding and just putting on the rivet tops. But it was decided to do functional rivets. So they just tack weld everything on here. And we're going to spend a good amount of time putting rivets in to hold the tank together. So here's the new tank. They had drilled some rivet holes at the top and bottom of each support member to show us where to go. And this is it, been next to the old tank. It really is nice. If you're ever in Ellsworth, come by and see it. They did a really nice job. The tender frame, that was something we were a little worried about. I mean, the full pulling force of the train is going to get put through it, and it's one casting. It's pretty impressive to see. So we thought we might find some cracks. And when we don't have the equipment to do this scale of sandblasting, so we had to hire someone to do this one. And this is it inside the tank. The tank, not a tank, the tent that they had erected, and they had to have special ventilation because last time it was painted, it was all lead paint. So having that floating around in the air was bad news too. And they did a really nice job, and we didn't find any cracks really. There were a few around the drawbar pin, and we were able to take care of that, and looks great now. We had painted it, and yeah, it was cool to stand next to. I mean, my entire life, the locomotive just really didn't look that nice. So it was really cool to stand next to something this big that is the color it was supposed to be. So we also needed to get all the trucks, 2 trucks completely redone. We don't have the equipment to do the wheels. So the wheels actually went down to Waterville, and Pan Am did those for us. The trucks themselves were in okay condition. Some of the leaf springs, which would have been mounted in the middle, they were taken out in this picture. They would have been mounted in the middle. You can see the empty bracing there between the wheels. Some of those were broken, and we needed to have a spring manufacturer make custom ones for us. And there was also some wear in the pedestals, which is what the driver boxes and the axles would have gone up and down in, and those were worn out from going up and down. So we had to build those up with weld, and took them down and put the trucks back together, put all the brake rigging back together. And this past December, we reunited the frame with the trucks, and this was also an exciting day. This was one of the first, or we felt this was like one of the big moments here, because we could push this around, and we're going to have the tank on hopefully this summer. So the big question is the boiler. This one, the majority of it is all right. We have to replace all flexible stay bolts on the locomotive. A flexible stay bolt just holds the exterior of the boiler and the firebox sheets. It holds them together, because without them, it would just blow up like a balloon. And they're designed to be flexible. And what I mean by that is, on the inside portion of it, it's threaded like you would just think of any other bolt, and you would thread that into the firebox. And when you're warming up the locomotive and in service, it's going to have a lot of expansion and contraction. So things are going to move. It's not going to be uniform. So if you had rigid bolts where they were threaded on both sheets, the exterior of the boiler and the firebox, they would shear off, they'd break. So flexible stay bolts on, this is a cutoff here on the right. It's got this bulbous head here, and so that allows it, sort of like your shoulder, to move around with the expansion and contraction of the firebox and the boilers. And they're not cheap, and there's a lot of them, and a lot of them were corroded so bad from having the jacket on it, that the cap and the sleeve, both the cap and the sleeve were completely corroded away, and all you would see was just the head with the cutout to screw it in. On the left is just shows the typical way we had to take them all off. They all required heat. These ones actually would look like they were in pretty good shape. You can see some of the threads were still shiny there, which you should find if they weren't compromised. And the left side on the left side here, you can see all the flexible stays around the on the back head. And on the bottom, you can see there's pretty significant corrosion, and this is the worst of it. So the cab roof got compromised while it was on display, and the cab floor, which is about where that corrosion starts at the bottom, just helped in retaining moisture right up against the back head. And those square portions on the left and right, was where the grate shakers were mounted. That's for on the interior of the firebox on the floor there. The grates, you could shift them and to while operating to level out and reduce the ash that was in there. And then at the end of the run, you force it all the way forward, and it would just drop all the ashes. Water got in between that, and that's really not that good. So it hasn't been determined whether this is going to be a patch we're just going to put a weld on there in the front, or if we're going to cut it out. That's going to have to be a discussion we're going to have maybe this year during the boiler inspection. On the right is Paul, and this is the first time we saw the interior of the boiler when we took that off. It looked great inside. Just had some surface rust, and everything looked good. So here's the smoke box. This was right after we had taken off the baffles and the stack extension. And they didn't clean it out after last run. So at the bottom 7-8 inches of the front flue sheet here, it was corroded pretty bad. So something we're going to have to do, again, something with that, because that's not going to meet spec. And we started taking out some superheater units. So here's a good portion of them on the floor in storage. Just looking at them, they all seem to be in pretty good shape. We're going to have to do the full testing of all these, but some of them, or hopefully all of them, will just go right back in the locomotive. And we just finished stripping them all out a couple months ago. So here's full empty sheet. We're going to have to now start cutting out these tubes. To shift gears here, another thing that Bob had redone, and this one is very impressive, is the stoker engine. 470 was equipped with a mechanical stoker. there was an act passed, must have been by Congress or the ICC, that requires a locomotive with a certain weight. They all needed a mechanical stoker. So when stoker was installed in 470, and they picked the smaller version. There were two sizes by Standard Stoker Company. There was a 7x7 and a 5x5, and that refers to the piston and cylinder measurements. Or excuse me, the stroke and cylinder measurements. And this was mounted in the tender. There was a little pocket and this was mounted inside, so it was shielded pretty well. So we weren't expecting it to be in that bad shape. So this was the first time that we had opened it up. This is the crankcase here, and first glance, it doesn't look that good, but this is all surface rust here and cleaned up. This is what it looked like. I mean, it was really amazing at the condition that it was in. The only thing that we needed to replace on this piece were the piston rods, because they were exposed, and where they were exposed in the middle, that had pitted, and we can't have that. So had new ones machined, and we also had to bore out the cylinders and put on and get new pistons. And once that was done, just painted up, and it's brand new. It looks great. It's really, really nice. And it's able to function on air. And we're having a touch a train in June 11th up in Ellsworth. And I believe it's going to be on display and hooked up there, and hoping that we can have some of the covers open. So if you bring your kids or whatever, you can watch all the machinery inside. And that basically takes me to where we're at today. So this summer, gonna hopefully do a lot more work on the tender. We got a lot of rivets we need to put in. I'd really like to see it painted up, because that'll be a nice big billboard we can move around with that speed lettering on the tender. I think that'll look really nice. And once that's done, that's going to be a big, I think that'll really boost and help with the funding we're going to get. They're going to be doing some more inspection on the boiler. Hopefully we get the tubes out, and we got to grit it all off with chalk, and we need to do ultrasonic testing. We need to see all the thickness of the steel. We got to take a sample of the steel, send it out to a lab to see exactly what sort of strength we're looking at. And depending on, hopefully it's better than the value that we use in the equation, because if it's better, that means it doesn't need to be as thick, which means we don't have to renew as much. And once that comes back from the lab, we'll evaluate what we're going to have to replace in the boiler. And yeah, that's all I got. I feel like I went through that a little fast. So if any of you want me to go back through some slides, I'd be more than happy to. Or if there are some questions, open it up.
Peter, first of all, thank you very much. One question I had is what prompted you guys to go the actual rivet route on the tender versus just rivet heads welded on?
We talked about doing all that, doing that with also replacing the bearings, the plain bearings with roller bearings. And there's an element to this of keeping how things were done alive. So we decided not to go with the roller bearings and keep the plain bearings, and we decided to do the real riveting because we wanted to be a little more genuine. Definitely be easier to have the full thing welded for sure, but it'll look really nice when it's done. And I think we'll be happy that we went with it once. Well, I'm happy we're going with it now, but I think we'll be really happy once we get it done, and you'll be able to see. I'm not sure if you can see on, I can zoom in here. Each rivet sort of has like an indent. That's as far as I can go around it from where it was put in. And that's something you really only get doing it genuinely, and it'll look nice once it's done. Any other questions?
This is Lloyd Neal. How are you?
Hey, Lloyd, I think I had one of your pictures in here.
That's true. Question I have is, um, what is the estimated cost um, to finish the project where it's ready to go back into active service? And what kind of fundraising do you need to do that? It sounds like you still need $1 million+ to finish.
Yeah, that would be nice, but it really, I don't have a good answer for that, and this is might be some kind of a politician answer because I don't really give a good answer.
Do you
We
think, do you think with CSX taking over from Pan Am, I know that CSX has contributed in the past to two C&O steam engines preservation. And I was wondering if that might be an opportunity where they might be more friendly to assist than Pan
Yeah,
Am.
cool. Yeah. I'll address both of these. So as far as the funding goes, we did a preliminary boiler inspection way back in 2012. We know there's going to be some stuff we're going to have to redo. We got to hire some professionals to do that. Unfortunately, there are two in Maine. There's Jason and Brian, who've probably had their hands on every steam locomotive in New England, I'm sure. And once we do the inspection, we'll really get a better idea of how much money the boiler is going to cost. I don't have a figure off the top of my head of how much we've already spent and have a full budget breakdown. We could get one together. We probably spent the move itself was close to 100,000. The tender, I think, was probably around that, maybe a little less than that. Don't quote me on that. I hope I'm accurate there. So yeah, we've spent a good chunk and change already. I would say close to $1 million, a little less left. And I'd say that would go up and down depending on like how far we went. So if we did the full stoker restoration, I mean, the engine's done, but the whole mechanism beyond that, the table of where it actually meets the firebox, all of that's would have to get redone. So that would increase the money. We'd need, if we did, Maine Central added the coffin feed water heater system to preheat the water before it went in the boiler. We're not going to redo that. Excuse me, we're not going to restore that at this time. So that's going to cut some money. So I don't have a good answer. And that's why. So, hopefully we get $1 million in the next few years and we can get it all done. But, I don't want to count my chickens here. And now, as far as CSX goes, Pan Am was actually really great to us. They gave us no issues when we first contacted their legal department about getting permission to use the speed lettering here on the tender. And yeah, they were all for it. They did the work on the trucks for us. We had many employees come over when we were working on the locomotive to talk about it. They had offered services. And when CSX comes in, I was at my day job. I'm a rail engineer by my day job. And I was at the conference in Worcester about a month ago, the New England Railroad Club conference, and David Fink from Pan Am was there. And I worked with Pan Am. I worked for Pan Am for a while in Billerica, and I had a conversation with Ted Krug there, and he's the chief engineer. And I was like, so like, what's going to happen? I mean, what, all you guys, are you going to keep your jobs? Like, and he just shrugged his shoulders, and they don't really know. So it would be, in respect to this project, it would be great if the higher ups at Pan Am stayed, because we've got a great relationship with them, but we don't know if they're going to leave, if they're going to go, what the deal is going to be with the short section of track that they still own up in Brewer. We're hoping, and we're hoping that's not going to get turned into a trail. And if it does, we're going to have to get in touch with Nate Moulton, who's the rail guy at the state, about, if they take it out, and that's going to limit the locomotive. And so it's going to be it's going to be a political thing with Brewer there and CSX and the state. So there's a lot that we don't really know about that merger, and it could potentially affect us in the future, regarding that section of track up in Brewer. So we're just waiting to see what's going to happen. And we weren't anticipating having a conversation with them about that section of track, to let 470 out into the rail network, just because it would be kind of hard to have that conversation with saying, well, maybe someday we'll have a running locomotive, but we don't have one now. I think it'll be a better conversation to say, look at this great locomotive we have running. When do you want it to come through your city, Brewer, and have a stop there, so you would allow us to put the tracks back in? And yeah, don't want to get too much into it. So we don't really know.
Peter, sir, how long were you able to remove all the rust and corrosion without a 15-ton crane or tools and machinery? I bet
How are we able to remove corrosion without?
And rust, even though we don't have a 15-ton crane or tools and machinery like most locomotive workshops.
All right, so I'm gonna split your question up. So we had two methods of removing the rust. So there was the sandblasting, where you use medium and blast it at compressed air, and that does a great job of removing paint. But you need to contain that, or else you're just going to lose all that sand or whatever you use, and it gets messy. It's painful. You got to wear special protective gear. It gets hot. And we don't have the facility like Waterville does, where the entire area is contained and the floor has a special system in place that recycles the medium. So we used a lot of needle scaling, and I'll pull up a clip of that, and it's loud and it shakes your hand a lot, but it does a great job. And so we use that extensively on places that were cast, because it leaves behind, I'm going to mute this here and bring it over. It leaves behind, it's not a clean, come on. It's not very clean. It'll leave divots, lots of divots around, but it doesn't really matter on a cast service. So it's like these it's literally these metal needles, and just goes all over the place, gets the rust off. So we did this a lot on the locomotive. And then as far as lifting it, the only big lift that we're going to have to do is to put the boiler back on the frame. And that's totally possible. I mean, we had pictures of them picking up the locomotive with these cranes. So we're going to have to get something like this involved again to put the boiler on. Hopefully we'll never have to take it off again. So that's going to be our heaviest lift. In the meantime, we're lucky that we own two cranes. We have a smaller one that's in the shop. See if I can find a picture of it here. We have a smaller one in the shop that we use to lift up like the axles for the tender truck, components maybe around that size. And then we also have one that is strong enough to pick up the tender, and it's in use here. It's in the background, you can see it, and it's actually could be a museum piece itself. It's from the 40s. It's pretty cool. Modern cranes are just controlled with joysticks. This one's controlled all with levers. So it takes a specially trained person. We couldn't do it ourselves. And luckily, our chief mechanical officer was with Chinbro and Pittsfield forever, and has a lot of friends and contacts in the construction business, and Juan volunteered his time, and whenever we need a lift, he comes over and he does it for us. All right, let me find a picture of that crane.
I'm glad that number 470 has a very good caretaker, despite that the work is slow.
Yeah, it's slow, but you gotta also remember, I mean, most of us are retired. I'm not retired. And but most of this is all done on the weekends, and it's 1 day a week on the weekends. So if we were completely funded, and we were able to pay a crew to do this full time, 5 days a week, this would go significantly faster than it's going now.
Good, Ev.
Oh, let's see. Any other questions while I look for this crane here? So probably my best bet here.
Peter, this is Kevin Twine in Bodenham. What do you anticipate your timeframes going to be before you get it running?
I'm going to have to lean back on my answer from Lloyd about how much it's going to cost. If Elon Musk gave us a big check and we could hire it out and have a full crew do it 5 days a week, maybe 2 years, just to guess, a year and a half. The rate we're going, to put it in perspective, 2926 out of in New Mexico, they took their locomotive off display in 1999, and they're about to do their first steam up. That's quite a while. Hopefully it goes faster than that. Really, again, that's really the best I can do. There's so many unknowns, I really don't know how else to I wish I could give a better estimate than that, but I mean, we could get a check tomorrow for $50,000. Here's a picture of a crane. I just don't know. I mean, we've gotten some pretty big grants just overnight, and had to change some ideas on the fly, change some what we were going to work on the fly because we got the money. So yeah, we don't know. Any other questions? Any other pictures you want me to go back to? Most of these are actually 470 Club pictures that I had before George Melvin, before they were sold off.
This is Alan, Peter, but that's all you can do is day at a time.
Yeah, for sure. And so far, I mean, everything has gone. We've been really fortunate. Everything's gone as smooth as it has. I mean,
and we try to get down once a year to Ellsworth and is it Leverett?
Yep, Leverett. Yep.
And he usually takes me in where we know him quite well. He gives me a tour on what's done each year. So I don't know if that's open to the rest of the members or not, Peter. I know we're close with Leverett, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're there right now. We're doing Sundays, but we're there almost every Saturday. And have you all been able to see my screen this entire time?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I'm gonna say I hope I was broadcasting that. Trying to get a video again up here while I'm talking. Yeah, there we go. Oops, it's not the right one. Yeah, so if you're in the area on any Saturday in the summer, you can just come in. If you want to be sure that we're there, just shoot us a message or an email, or if you know Leverett or any of us, just let us know, and yeah, you can come on down.
Peter, is George Thomas still doing the conductor work?
I'm not really involved much with Down East. I
Okay,
think so. I think he
Okay.
is. But that is a question that I can't give a definite answer to.
okay. Well, George and I used to work together because I'm retired now, so that's how I know George. And I know Leverett Fernald because before you guys took the project over to move the steam locomotive out of Waterville, we were the group that actually saved the 470 from the city of Waterville actually wanted to scrap it and cut it up for scrap metal. So we actually stopped them from doing it. So
Yeah. Why is this doing this? Stop share. Hold on. Let me just get this set up here and then I'll. No, I want to view. All right. Sorry, folks. Let me how about this? Can you see the footage now?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I can see it, Peter.
Yeah, so this was taken by Henry Vaughn. He had 16 millimeter camera on the last run. We got this scanned a few years ago. His son let us scan it, and it's really good footage. There's a portion of it in color at the end. I'm sorry, what was the last question? It's Lewiston. It's Waterville. It's Waterville Yard there on the right. It's Bangor, the bridge there. I think it's the Veterans Bridge, Memorial Bridge, one or the other. Was still under construction in 54. story goes that on the trip down south, they got the locomotive up over 80. President Miller at the time, he was in the cab, and the engineer let him take the throttle, and he got it up to that speed. And the engineer said that he had to take him off the throttle and tell him to slow down, as the story goes. It's hard to believe going 80 miles an hour on the lower road now.
Peter, when it was in service, what was its primarily use? The engine.
Yeah, it varied. I mean, we have yet to find any sort of documentation saying exactly what route she went on throughout her career, but definitely Portland to Boston. Lots of shots on the Rockland branch too. And I can't think off the top of my head, except for the shots of her getting ready for the last run, I can't think of any shots north of Portland. Every picture I've seen of her now that I'm thinking about it has been from Portland or the Rockland branch south. Not saying she did it.
For some reason I thought it did. It wasn't with the Bar Harbor Express, was it?
Yeah, she would have been. I've gotten conflicting things on that because there was a weight restriction on the Calais branch. On the Calais branch, and from what I remember, she didn't meet that restriction. So whether she did the Massachusetts up through, or excuse me, from Portland up to Bangor, and then they switched to a lighter locomotive, that could have definitely been a thing. She definitely could have probably pulled it. I mean, the newest locomotive up until they got the Hudsons in 1930. So you would think that they would put it on their nicest train there. So yeah, she very well could. And I actually do, now that I'm thinking about it, I do remember seeing pictures of Brunswick. Well, yeah, that's on the Rockland branch. I think I have one shot in Gardner during her career, and a shot in Oakland. Yep, those are the only other places I've seen her outside north of Portland. That's the display there, and the first display, it was really nice in front of the station.
It's just hard to believe how big of a company the Maine Central was, and look at where we are today with it.
Yeah, it was massive. I mean, especially in Waterville. I mean, the infrastructure that they had in Waterville, and the amount of tracks throughout around the College Avenue and Main Street was very impressive. Any other questions, or
I wanted to ask you a question, Peter.
Sure.
Were you a train engineer in Millinocket by any chance?
No, I've only ever driven through Millinocket.
Okay, because there's another Peter that I know, and I was wondering if it was you.
It is not me.
Okay.
I've never operated on Locomotive. Nope. Never gotten that chance. Hopefully 470 will be the first one.
Well, that'd be a good experience for you.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with that video that this person restored, and it looked very nice too.
Yeah, 16 millimeter footage. We could have probably. I got to look into getting that rescanned. I mean, we could probably get that rescanned now into 4K, but that was done at 1080p. It looked pretty good. But yeah, we could get even more out of it. We're used to 8 millimeter footage, which is you can get some good HD footage out of 8 millimeter. I've been trying to track down some of them. You might know Lawrence Brown. He took a lot of 8 millimeter footage of 470, and I've been trying to find that footage. And it was given to Mark from Mark One Video, and I don't think he got it back. I think it's still in his family's possession.
That video is titled "Memories of Steam in New England."
Yep, and there's two ways you can see Brownie's stuff. There's the VHS tape, which he did himself, which he set up a projector and he narrated over it, and then the one that Mark did for the real commercial release, which you can still buy copies of. So I reached out, and it's his son that runs it now because he had passed away, and he said that there's tens of thousands of reels, and I guess his dad didn't do a good job cataloging, and he says he just right now doesn't have the time to find it. So hopefully that changes soon, and we can get full scans and digitize the entire thing before, if any of you work with film, they're really susceptible to any sort of humidity and temperature change, and you get what's called vinegar syndrome, and it's literally chemically destroys itself, and it curls up, and it gets stiff and fragile, and if you try to put it through a projector, it'll just, yeah, I mean, it literally destroys itself. So hopefully it's still in good shape, and someday we get to see it again. Brownie took some good shots.
Lawrence Brown. He also photographed the Bridgeton and Harrison.
Yeah, he was all over the place. Fortunate, he worked for the railroad at the time. I think he ended his career, or either ended or began his career as a bus driver. And he was into photography. I actually have the rest of his movies, which weren't railroad, and I've digitized. He took video of a parade in Waterville in '52. I've digitized that, and I've got home movies. He went out of the American Freedom Train. It was a professional film he had. Some home movies. He was into gas stations, it seems. There was a lot of footage of the Shell stations around in the late 30s. And steamboats. I haven't watched all of those yet. I think he had a camp out in Belgrade. So I think he was able to get some footage of some of those steamboats, but I'm still going through. And so far, I've only seen 2 train shots. One quick shot of the Waterville station. I think he was getting done work or going on work because it was from a bus. And the other one is a Mikado. It looks like it's in Oakland. It's a long answer to your statement about film. All right, I got a message here. Is that from Alan? Okay, yeah. So the question is, how did we get it from Waterville to Washington Junction? I don't know if this was before I showed the picture, but we got it trucked down and went down 95. And then went Route 1A. Yeah. They had to do a full survey. Yeah, I figured.
I did that, and you just started right after that. So
that's okay. I'll expand on it. So we had to have them do a full survey of a route because we weren't sure what sort of weight we were looking at when we first started, and we lifted the locomotive up. We got a bunch of jacks, and we lifted the locomotive up to see exactly how we were going to do it, because we were hoping that we were going to be able to keep the boiler and the frame together, because we're worried once you separate those two, things are going to start moving. I mean, they've been together as far as we know. That's the original boiler. And they've been together the entire life. You separate them and any sort of shift, and the holes don't line up. And so we really didn't want to, but we found that it weighed so much that we were going to have to. And so luckily 95 was a good route. There wasn't any clearance issues, and the state gave us the permits for it. The only issue, I guess, was really the flat tire that they had to replace on the trailer that the boiler's on. And they donated that trailer. It's ours now, and we've got it inside, so we can move it basically whenever we want, and it's keeping it in good shape. The brakes aren't going to seize up because it's not exposed to any weather.
I've got another film question on eBay. Sure. There's a film of Maine Central trains and locomotives from the 40s and 50s. It's about an hour long. Are any of you familiar with who did that? Or I think it was done around 2015 or something.
I've never heard of that. Was this like a legit commercial release or like a home movie someone had?
It was home movies that were kind of spliced together. It's if you go onto eBay and look up Maine Central, it comes up there.
I'm wondering if that was the was it the Lawrence Brown stuff we were talking about? Was it that?
But I don't know. I'm trying to find out.
There was another guy. I've got his name somewhere. I don't have off the top of my head. He shot some 8mm footage of steam, Maine Central, and well, just steam around Maine. There's a VHS copy of his footage in what is it? Bucksport at Northeast Historic Film. I talked to his kids trying to find the original, and haven't had any luck yet. But hopefully soon that they can locate that. All right, Maine Central footage, Maine Central movie. What did you? Because if it's like something that's, well, if it's spliced together and was like a one-time thing, I mean, we're not going to find it on here. But if it was something like a commercial thing that's just they have a bunch of, and we find it. But that's the first. I've never heard of that. I missed that one.
It's on eBay. When you search by Maine Central, it comes up on that. It's got a lot of really good footage, especially of the low road that I live near in Bowdenham, and it's got early diesels too.
Does it? Wait, so you have a copy of it?
Oh no, I just it's on eBay. I mean, you can download that stuff if you're paying for it.
I can't find it. So if you find a link, let me know.
Yeah, I sure will.
Eric and Alan have my email, and I'm curious if my hunch is that it's Lawrence Brown stuff.
Yeah.
But do you remember off the top of your head what it had for 470 footage? Because I know what Brownie had for 470.
I didn't see any 470. I saw 469 on there. Quite a bit of the 460 to 469 series. A lot of reefers for some reason on it. But now,
Was it?
I'm gonna put my email on chat if you guys could. Wait a minute. How do I get on chat here? Oh yeah, that's it. That's it. Who put that up?
I'm not sure who this is. When I went to UMaine, and they had a VCR hooked up to the computer there, and I digitized a copy of it. But yeah, this is. I got to see if maybe my copy might have been in a little bit better shape than this one. But yeah, this is all from Brownie. And I think he talks over it, and he knows
somebody with a old fashioned Maine accent talks over it. Yeah.
Yep, that's Brownie. Yeah, there's a little bit of 470 in here. We'll see if I can find it. I really hope that I can someday get this footage, because this is such a poor transfer. Yeah, this is her being put on display.
In front of the old Waterville station.
Yep, that's him.
Some of these scenes looked familiar because some of these scenes was also used in Memories of Steam of New England.
Yeah, and that's a much better transfer than this was. I literally think this is him with a projector and a camera.
There's a 470. There it is.
But what's neat is he's talking over it, and he tells you the people that are in it and any sort of details. So if you can find a copy of this, I'd pick a copy of this up. I don't have a copy. I only have this digital one, but it is on YouTube. 50 years.
It was a rainy, wet day.
50 years of Maine Central. And then Memories of Steam in New England, the Mark I video I was talking about, that's up here too. So this is a better transfer, but still nothing to write home about.
Yeah,
His son, Jeffrey Balkin, is the current owner of those videos.
Jeffrey
sorry, what's
who?
Jeffrey Balkan.
is that Mark's
Yes,
son?
that's Mark S. Balkan's son. Yes.
Do you know? Did you have you met him before?
No, but I've read
No.
information online.
How do
Yeah,
you-
so that must
how-
have been the guy I talked to.
How do you spell that last name?
Balkin.
Yeah,
What was his first name again?
Jeffrey,
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
So the only way that I've been contacting him is eBay. So this must be the guy that I was talking to, and it wasn't like it's just not a priority for him. I think he just sells the stuff that his dad produced, which is actually, if you think about it, I mean, he synced up all this audio to this footage in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's pretty good.
yeah. This is good stuff here.
Yeah, and all of this footage, I'm not gonna play it all here, but I mean, it's all synced up with sound. It's really, really good. And man, I wish I could get this, because I'd have a professional rescan this all in the highest quality that you can get, and it would look really nice, but I just got to get my hands on it. This is what I was looking for when I got all of Brownie's film canisters here behind me.
And Jim Boyd, Jim Boyd, a railroad photographer, narrated some of the Mark I videos.
Oh, okay.
The only Mark I video I do remember was Edaville Railroad, Massachusetts' main attraction, and Edaville Revisited,
Yeah, I'm not
which is
I'm not aware of any other. I'm only really care about this stuff of them, so I haven't actually looked at his catalog. But that would be pretty neat, though. I don't know much about Edaville, so I should probably pick one of those up, considering I live down in Massachusetts now.
Even though it's just a Mark I video related, but that's another story.
Yeah. Well, if any of you know of any film anywhere, we digitize and preserve it for free. I'll make a pitch here. I have it's something we put out in our newsletter, that if anyone has pictures, plans, film, we completely digitize, copy whatever you want, no charge, and we give it back if you want it back. So if you know anybody, just reach out and we'll do it. I've got a pile of plans and pictures here that I'm going to be doing here in the next couple of weeks. So just let me know.
Well,
Sounds
Peter,
good.
we're starting to hit an hour and a half here. I want to just thank you for presenting to us tonight. I know I found quite a bit of it pretty interesting. It's funny when I think about it. The old saying I've always heard when we had engine 501 was, how do you make $1 million with a steam locomotive? Well, you start with 10 million. So in that regards, I certainly feel your pain.
Yeah. Man, it would be great and to gonna really foam here, but see them next to each other someday, which totally could be a possibility if we had the political will and the money. But yeah, we're fortunate. I mean, Maine Central kept 3 steam locomotives. I mean, that's a pretty good chunk. I mean, considering how small the roster is compared to big New York Central or Pennsylvania Railroad. But yeah, I mean, they kept 3, so we're pretty fortunate here. Unfortunately, I wish one of them was the Hudson, because those are very cool. But 470 is pretty great, I think. It's my favorite.
The 501 used to be the 470 Railroad Club's owned locomotive, but that had been sold to the Conway Scenic Railroad.
That must have been recent. I didn't know it was officially done last couple years.
It was
Yeah,
only
probably 5 or so years ago.
Yeah.
And the 519 is at Steamtown, the third Maine Central steam locomotive.
Yeah, we had reached out. There's I mean, I didn't cover everything here. 470's whistle was stolen in the 50s. They had a sheet metal one reproduced when it was put back, when she was on display. And we had always wondered what happened to that whistle, whether it was a gift to some politician or, excuse me, someone that retired at Maine Central, but no one's come forward. And luckily We had a guy very talented, and he was able to make 2 new whistles for us. And what I was getting at with 519, we had reached out talking to them, see if they still had they still had any whistle, and unfortunately they didn't. Same with 501.
Various railroad owners all the time.
Yeah, and what we've run into, and I've run into a lot. I mean, I'm working on a personal project of the Waterville station, and I've been looking for pictures and plans everywhere, and looking at old books. They give the photo credits, and I'll look up the name. Person had died, I found their obituary, reach out to the family, and they either don't know where the collection went, or they had given it to a friend, or they sold it individually on eBay. So a lot of these collections, they're just getting lost. 469's headlight was just that sold at auction. We tried to buy it, and it went for like $7,000 or $8,000, and we got a ton of donations to try to get it. And it was actually, speaking of Lawrence Brown, it was Lawrence Brown's. He had given it to a friend when he sold his house, or right before he had passed away. And yeah, that got sold recently. A Maine Central whistle, and I'm not sure if it was 469's or not, was sold at the same auction. Yeah, it just shows up. If it still exists, it can just show up in a random spot, or it could just be gone forever, or in someone's attic and they don't even know. I mean, yeah, not sure. I mean, might be with Jimmy Hoffa. We never know.
Well, again, Peter, I want to thank you for presenting to us tonight. Certainly taking up enough of your time. And for everybody else, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next month.
Yes, thanks, guys. Again, if you have any pictures, plans, film, whatever, let me know.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you.